Labour says you should have moved at lightning speed to close the borders with India, as you did with Pakistan and Bangladesh. You didn't because of a trade deal photo op with the PM of India. That's true, isn't it, according to Jonathan Ashworth?
Well, that's what Jonathan says, but actually it's not true, no. We closed our borders, we put India on the red list at the earliest appropriate opportunity on the basis of all the evidence that we had. In fact, we put India on the red list before we knew that this Delta variant was a variant of concern.
You say that. However, looking at the test and trace figures for the 25th of March to the 7th of April, India was a bigger concern than Bangladesh, and yet you put Bangladesh on the red list, but not India.
We put Bangladesh and Pakistan on the red list, and that's because the advice at the time from the Joint Biosecurity Centre, the team of experts who help us to determine when action should be taken, was that the positivity rate of those coming from Pakistan and Bangladesh merited that. And then, of course, we subsequently put India on the red list. But when we did put India on the red list, it was the case that the Delta variant wasn't then a variant under investigation, never mind a variant of concern.
But according to the figures, you know, India's the middle one of these bars, and Bangladesh was put on the red list, India was not, and these are your own test and trace figures.
Yes, but there was a higher positivity rate overall for people coming from Pakistan and Bangladesh. And it's important to remember that even before India was put on the red list, anyone arriving from India had to self-isolate for 10 days, quarantine at home, in order to ensure that they weren't spreading the virus.
Yeah, quarantine at home is very different to quarantining in a hotel, of course, isn't it? And a lot of people either quarantine at home with other family members there or don't quarantine at all.
Yes, and of course, one of the reasons why we put India on the red list was to have even stricter measures. But of course, it is the case that there's been enforcement of home quarantine. So when people have breached those rules, they have been fined. And it's very important that everyone appreciates that there are enforcement measures in place. And it is the case that when advice was given to Matt and to the rest of us in government, that we took the appropriate action. And the idea that the Prime Minister would put the nation's health at risk because of a photo opportunity with any other Prime Minister is just for the birds.
So you completely, as far as Labour is concerned, making that allegation, saying it was a trade deal photo op, absolute nonsense.
Total rubbish.
Do you regret, with the benefit of hindsight, we love 2020 hindsight, do you think we should have put India on the red list earlier?
Well, it's always the case that people use hindsight. I mean, it's become Labour's preferred method of viewing all decisions. But I think that we can only act on the basis of the evidence that we have at the time.
OK, so looking back, do you wish that you'd put them on the red list earlier?
Well,
given that we know what we know now and the fact that the numbers are doubling every week.
With perfect hindsight, there are many, many things that we've done in the past, that I've done in the past, that I wouldn't have done at the time.
Like what?
You can only
like
act...
What?
Well, that's another interview.
Okay.
You can only act on the basis of the information you have at the time.
OK. One of the reasons put forward that people don't isolate or haven't isolated always up until now is the unsatisfactory isolation payments. Should we look again at compensating people for staying at home because they're going to work because they need the money? Yeah,
absolutely. I think the isolation payments work, but we keep everything under review. And it is the case that we provide support for people who do have to self-isolate and where there is an impact on their income. But again, one of the things that we seek to do is to make sure that we take decisions that balance support for individuals with making sure that we keep others safe as well.
Do you acknowledge that we perhaps do need to look at that again, though, that there isn't enough money, which is why people are breaking? You know, they don't want to go to work, they just need the money.
Well, we keep things under review, and if there is evidence, then we'll look at it. But the evidence so far is that people understand the need for quarantine or for self-isolation, and that people, the overwhelming majority, are law-abiding and understand the requirements that the government has reluctantly put in place.
19th of July, terminus day. Are we finally going to see the end of these restrictions on the 19th of July? Or is it just the end of the tram stop and we go round again?
No, that will be the terminus date.
You did say that about the 21st of June, to be fair.
Well, to be fair, what we said is that we won't lift those restrictions before the 21st of June. In the roadmap, it says not before. And the whole point about the roadmap was to build in an element of flexibility and caution. And what we want to do is to, and it is regrettable, that we do have this pause before moving to step 4. But what we want to do is to make sure that when we do make that move, that we don't go back. Because the worst thing for business, the worst thing for any of us, would be to open up again and then to very quickly find that we had to reimpose restrictions.
So what has to happen on the 19th of July for us to not extend further?
Well, we believe that the vaccination programme, which has been a big success so far, can successfully vaccinate an even higher proportion of the adult population. We can make sure that those who've been vaccinated once get that second vaccine, and that we extend right the way down the population range. And we hope by so doing that we can limit the risk of infection and also reduce the number of people going into hospitals and putting a strain on the NHS.
OK, let me put it another way. What has to happen on the 19th of July for us to consider extending further?
Well, it would require, I think, an unprecedented and remarkable alteration in the progress of the disease.
Because it has been described as Hotel California. We can check out any time we like, but we can never leave these restrictions that we find ourselves in. You're saying come the 19th of July, we will definitely be able to unlock and go about our business.
Yes, and to be fair, even though the restrictions that we still have at the moment are difficult, there are a significant range of activities that people can now undertake. Believe me, I'd love to get rid of all of the restrictions, but I think it's important that we maintain a sense of proportion. And so there are some particular sectors of the economy that are under a greater degree of pressure, but the economy overall is performing well. And many of the things that we hold dear, we can now do as a result of the success of the vaccination programme and the progress that we've already made.
£2.5 billion worth of rent debt already in the hospitality sector. Oh, they're gunning for you guys. They are not at all happy. They cannot open for at least another 5 weeks. What would you say to them?
Well, it is the case that we've already provided support for the hospitality sector, and it is the case, of course, that venues can open in a COVID-secure way. But, both of us, I think, would like nothing more than to be able to stroll to the bar, order a drink, gossip with friends, and socialise as we have in the past. But we need to exercise a degree of caution. It is the case now that you and I could go to dinner, we could enjoy table service, we could catch up on mutual friends and so on. So social life can continue, albeit under restrictions. And I think it's important that the hospitality sector is supported. But I also think it's important that we don't have a situation where we open up and then close down again. I think the hospitality sector would find that the most difficult thing of all.
More financial support for the hospitality sector?
Well, the financial support that the Chancellor's already put in place was intended to take account of any slippage in the date from the 21st of June.
of July, and then the furlough scheme starts to taper off from the 1st of July, doesn't it?
Well, we're asking employers to play a bigger role in the furlough scheme.
They've got massive debts. They need your support.
But the system that we have is more generous than most similar countries, and it's
that doesn't help the people that are struggling, does it? Here in this country?
It's still the case that there will be furlough support until the end of September, but we're just asking employers to pay a little bit of that furlough support. And that's entirely in line with what other countries that have been going through perhaps even greater difficulties are doing as well.
So although we're extending to the 19th of July, there won't be any more money than what's already been announced?
Well, the Chancellor deliberately decided to go long in terms of financial support. That's why furlough is there. That's why other support is there into the autumn.
So in answer to my question, there won't be any more money than what's already been announced?
What we've already announced, the Chancellor, and I think he's right, has calculated will help support the economy, and all the evidence is that the economy is performing better than many feared.
OK. When should school children have their jabs?
I think that's ultimately a matter for the JCVI and for medical experts to advise us on.
But you'd be very happy for your kids to have theirs as soon as?
I would follow medical advice, yeah. OK.
Masks in schools, they have been scrapped. Should that be reconsidered, given that we've seen the virus spreading amongst kids?
Well, it's spreading amongst younger people who haven't been vaccinated, but I think at every point we have to make a judgment. Yes, case numbers are rising, but it's also the case that even though many restrictions are still in place, others have been lifted, for example, on weddings. And the key thing is that we want to get life back to normal as quickly as possible, but we have to exercise a degree of caution. So we can have some progressive relaxations, and I think that they're balanced against the need to preserve public health.
Staycations, only way forward, we're told this year by many of your colleagues that have been sat there over the last week or so. You did go to the Euros in Portugal. You got pinged, sadly.
Yes.
Has that meant that you're thinking twice about going overseas?
Yes. I haven't made any holiday plans yet.
OK, but I'm guessing you're not going to be heading to the Scottish Hills or the Welsh Hills because this new...
Well, probably will be going to Scotland.
Well, you say that because these new soup to nuts trade deal with Australia, the farmers are not at all happy in the United Kingdom. They feel that Aussie farmers having unfettered access to across our borders with their lamb supplies will cause all sorts of problems.
Well, we support farmers, and we do so not just by providing them with direct financial support, but also by making sure that we give them an opportunity to export their fantastic produce on the world stage. And I actually think that we should be confident about the quality of the produce that our farmers are responsible for. I think that opening up new markets for them worldwide, which is what the brilliant Trade Secretary Liz Truss is doing, is the way to make sure that we can not only keep our farmers successful, but also ensure that we have investment in the countryside.
So you're not worried that, as they are, about the Aussie lamb flooding into the United Kingdom and there being no market for UK lamb?
Well, I personally am a great fan of Welsh lamb and
Me and you
Scottish
both.
lamb. And I think that consumers will be free to make that choice. But I think it is also worth pointing out that the majority of meat which is reared and raised in Australia goes to the Asian market. And that is their principal and growing market. But overall, Australia is a friend and ally. And I think that, there have been one or two points that have been made about Australia during the course of this debate that mischaracterise how Australian farmers operate and the opportunities also for UK farmers. So it's important that we maintain protections and support for farmers, but it's also the case that opening up trade barriers provides, or rather bringing them down and opening up new opportunities, provides our farmers with a chance to show on the world stage the amazing quality of UK produce.
OK, I want to put this to you finally, if I may, and I need to read my notes because I want to be precise. The High Court has found that you broke the law last week in your department's awarding of a £500,000 contract to Public First, which was run by your friend and former Special Advisor James Frey. And that's a breach of the ministerial code. Matt Hancock acted unlawfully over pandemic contracts, we're told. There was evidence that Priti Patel broke the code in dealing with her staff as well. What do you have to do to get punished in the Cabinet?
Well, the first thing to say is that the decision to award that contract was not my decision. I'm very happy to defend it because we were operating under pressure at a time when this pandemic required us to act with speed. And it's important also to say that the court didn't find any evidence that I had tried to influence this particular contract. And what we were doing across government at that time was responding to a very, very challenging situation. And the court found that there was no actual bias in the decision that was taken by others to award this contract.
But acting with speed doesn't mean that you can breach the ministerial code.
There was no breach of the ministerial code.
Sure?
Yeah.
So when we come back to this in a month's time, you're absolutely standing by that?
Absolutely.
OK, fantastic. Just before I let you go, how disappointed are you that you didn't manage to go to the G7? They looked as though they were having a whale of a time.
I was having an even better time in Northern Ireland. I was there for the British-Irish Council, so it was an opportunity for me to say thank you to Arlene Foster, the departing First Minister of Northern Ireland. And Cornwall is lovely, but Fermanagh, I think, is even nicer. And
that was better than a barbecue on the beach?
Yes, we had a very nice dinner with Northern Ireland produce, from Loch Arran eel to local beef. And I'd recommend to anyone, if they're wondering where to go on holiday this summer and Cornwall is booked, then try Northern Ireland. OK,
good to talk to you. I have to let you go. Could chat forever. I really do want to come back again, though, about some of the things that you don't want to talk about today, not least what things that you've regretted doing in the past.
OK, Kate, but it will probably take us a couple of hours.
OK, we can clear the schedule for you. It's no problem at all. Thanks so much indeed.
All right, thanks, Kate. Thank you.